that maybe my colleagues in the media here, that they might interview police and other people who might explain to them the principles of a citizen's arrest, where it can occur, how it can occur, the areas where it can be justified, how to make sure that your actions can hold up in court, can be justified, and so on. And of course, always to ensure that you're protected against retaliation, because criminals are among some of the angriest people that we have around. They see you beating up one of their partners, one of their homies, or even that same person. When he gets out, when he gets away, all he's thinking of is to retaliate and to strike back at you and to do even worse than what you did to him. So that's just my advice, folks. No matter our frustrations, let us make sure that there is a clear dividing line between us, the law-abiding citizens, and those who are committing the crimes. My guest is here. Without any further ado, let me say good afternoon and welcome to my program for the first time, Dr. Kenny Anthony, the Honorable Member of Parliament, elected for the last 25 years repeatedly for the constituency of Vieux Fort South, former Prime Minister and former political leader of the now governing St. Lucia Labour Party. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you.
Thank you, Shelton, for your warm welcome. First, may I apologize to you and your listeners that I'm a little late to the program. I had promised to be here for 12:30. But as they often say, events occur that you have no control over. It's really one of those days. And of course, the rain does not help. And on my way here, there are a lot of road works, particularly on the Millennium Highway, and inevitable delays that flow from that. So I want to apologize that I'm late. It's not normal that I'm late for events like this. So I thought I should let you know and your listeners know that what the situation was, hence the delay. So Thank you very much, but good to be here.
Right, it's nice to have you here, and I can assure you that everyone is waiting, and the little lateness is something that won't register with those who are so eager for your participation in the real issues.
Sure.
But especially with regard to this St. Jude Hospital reconstruction project. We're hearing so many things being said about it these days. It appears there's almost an attempt to rewrite and to reframe history about it. But I know there would be few people who would have as much of a broad picture of knowledge about it than yourself. So I just want to, take you back. I'm not sure what would be the best starting point. But as I think I indicated to you in the message that I first sent you about inviting you here, was that you were one when you returned to office following the November 28th 2011 general elections, that St. Jude Hospital is one of the things that really occupied your attention as Minister of Finance, as Prime Minister, and as the MP, if not for the constituency where it is situated. Well, St. Jude Hospital, yes, but of course the stadium may fall a little outside that. But in the south of the island, you would have it right within your focus quite a lot. Can you tell us about the efforts that you made to get the reconstruction going, including efforts to secure funding for it?
The truth of the matter is a lot of that story has been told, both officially and unofficially. And of course, there have been so many lies as well. Lies sometimes fashioned to satisfy a particular agenda, as in the case of the former government. And there's no doubt in my mind that the decision of the government not to proceed with the reconstruction of the hospital was a horrendous error, a major error. And it has cost the people of St. Lucia immeasurably. I don't have to tell you the pain and suffering that the people in the south have endured, particularly people in my constituency, Vieux Fort South, because the hospital is located in my constituency, in cantonment in Vieux Fort South, to be precise. Now, there can be little doubt that the former government, when it inherited St. Jude Hospital, was determined to bring the hospital to a conclusion and to complete it, but so much intervened at the time to prevent that from happening.
When you say the former government, which one you refer to?
The government that I led, of St. Lucia Labour Party, after 2011. The first issue was financing, because the former government prior to 2011, the UWP government, left no money for the completion of St. Jude. So we had a major problem to try to raise funds to complete the hospital. And it meant sometimes borrowing money on the open market, particularly the government securities market at the time, to raise the money to complete the hospital. And As is often the case with projects like this, you do inherit a lot of bills, unpaid bills, and we met that, of course. To make matters worse, the then contractor had a lot of problems with employees, often not meeting the payment of wages to the employees, and the employees complained bitterly. And we had to intervene also to ensure too that he was paid. When we felt that we had raised what we could have on the regional securities market and elsewhere, and there was still a shortfall, I then turned to the government of Taiwan, to President Ma at the time, not the current president, President Ma.
Ma Ying-jeou, I think, was
Ma Ying-jeou, yes. He was then the president of Taiwan, and asked for a loan of $20 million US at the time to bring the hospital to conclusion. The Taiwanese themselves at the time had changed the policies to the Eastern Caribbean. Rather than giving governments handouts, huge amounts of money, and then for projects or otherwise to undertake ambitious programs, they decided that they would support governments, first of all, by an allocated amount by way of budgetary support, just over $30 million annually.
Okay.
The former UWP government received, there's a current government, I think, received an allocation as well, over 30-something million. I can't remember whether it's 34, 36 million, or somewhere between there. In fact, that finances the CDP as we know it.
Okay. So are you saying that they declined your request for the $20 million US?
No, they did not. I'm just saying
Okay,
that policies changed.
Okay.
And instead, therefore, of giving us an outright grant to reconstruct the hospital, they had contributed to the hospital before. Because when the hospital got burnt, they did make an allocation. They did agree to provide some funding to reconstruct the hospital. But that had been absorbed during the years that Stephenson King was Prime Minister.
Was it absorbed for the purpose for which it was taken? I'll tell you
I believe it was at the time. Because construction was on the way and the Taiwanese were involved in the construction. And I don't have any evidence otherwise to arrive at a different conclusion.
Okay.
But the Taiwanese had changed their approach and they were not given grants anymore. They made that very, very clear. And they were proceeding in two directions. One, they would give this annual amount as budgetary support to assist you to meet your budgetary requirements, and in particular to fund the
CDP,
Constituency Development Program, because they felt that the money utilized in that program would meet the needs of communities far better than costly projects. Because as you know, they were in a competition with the People's Republic of China in terms of how projects were conceived and executed. The second thing, of course, they decided to go by way of loans, as in fact had been done in the case of other countries. So I had very lengthy discussions with President Ma on an official visit to Taiwan. And he looked favorably at the suggestion that we borrow the money from the Import-Export Bank of Taiwan, about, as I said, in the amount of $20 million US. But as is often the case with such loans, it took some time to work out the terms and conditions and to satisfy the legal requirements.
That interaction with President Ma, that was around what time? 2013, 2014? I'm just trying to figure out.
We were elected, I think, in
November 2011, yes.
I can't remember when I made the official visit, whether it was 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
But I have to tell you, I had a very good relationship with President Ma. We got along fine. And there were reasons for it. First of all, he was also a trained lawyer, so we had a lot of share legally. But otherwise, his forte was in public international law, which is not my forte. In fact, I don't take public international law very seriously as a body of law. So we had quite a lot of fun laughing about that.
Okay.
And
did you also interact with him on a visit he made to the hemisphere, I think in Mexico or somewhere?
Yes. Well, he did visit St. Lucia
at some point. And I'm told by someone that this is one area where they developed great admiration and respect for you when they saw they were present and the way you engaged him on, providing assistance.
Well, that's the point. We had a tremendous relationship. What I think warmed the relationship a lot is the fact that while he was a nationalist, meaning that he was in favor of Taiwan's independence and self-determination, he also was a very realistic politician. So he moved to ease cross-strait tensions between Taiwan and China. And as you know, he had entered into some 40-something agreements with, maybe more, with China on a bilateral basis. And of course, that eventually cost him the elections at the end of his second term, but opened the doors between Taiwan and China. So he was from the Kuomintang party, whereas the current president is from, I think, a political party called the Democratic and Progressive party in Taiwan. He was not as right-wing as the current president. The current president, of course, is very hawkish. Certainly not of the caliber and quality of mind as President Ma. I mean, that is in my opinion. And while, of course, President Ma understood my own sympathies for the maintenance of ties with the People's Republic of China, he was very respectful of that. And we had tremendous discussions about the People's Republic of China. And in fact, he shared a lot of his perspectives with me and why he thought that the Chinese president would have been a formidable international figure, as he has turned out to be, because obviously even the United States is having huge problems. So we had very frank and open discussions. But that did not prevent a very personal relationship with President Ma. And I do recall other things that he agreed to, including, of course, assisting us with the architectural design for...
That is another one of St. Jude. That is another one.
No, not just St. Jude, but of a center, a cultural center for the arts. And they, in fact, had sent down an architect to look at the potential site for us and do a design. And that's the sort of relationship that we had. So while there were differences, obviously, differences in perspectives, but we had decided to maintain ties with Taiwan during that period. And there's a story there, but today is not the day to explore that story.
I think we recall that story also.
No, I don't even think the full story is known what in fact happened.
Well, we'll leave that for another time.
We'll leave that for another time. But suffice it to say that it was a very respectful relationship, and he was very keen to assist.
So how did it really progress in the end towards getting the additional financing?
We got that. We got that once.
It was disbursed.
We started to disburse it.
That is the loan component.
The loan component.
There was no grant component per se.
There was a grant component during the tenure of former Prime Minister
Stephenson King. But during your tenure, it was the loan that you had requested.
It was the loan component. Yes, and we had started to disburse that. Now, don't forget, also during my tenure, we had also finalized grant from the government of Mexico. We had discussions.
I think Mexico has been on my mind. I thought that was where you met President Ma during some hemispheric
No, I met President
So I may be crossing my lines a little bit there.
Officially in
Taiwan. And I had a visit. But the government of Mexico gave a grant.
Yes, they did give a grant, and that grant was utilized as well.
It was a significant amount?
It was a significant I think it was, I'm trying to remember the exact facility that was paid for by the Mexicans, whether it was a emergency area of the hospital. So we got a substantial grant from the government of Mexico as well. Yes.
Between the Mexican funding and the Taiwanese loan funding and so on, what difference did that make towards pushing that hospital project along and so on?
It made a tremendous difference because whereas we were relying on funds to raise all the government securities market, which included what we call treasury bills or bonds. Bonds are more long-term instruments, maybe in some cases over a year, maybe 15 months, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, depending on the issuance. Treasury bills are short-term
90 days,
etc. So instead of relying exclusively on that and putting pressure, because there were other financial pressures at the time, because don't forget we had to take some major economic decisions in that period, including, of course, the introduction of VAT, which you hear of so much about, because St. Lucia was the only country that didn't have VAT, and we had to sort of stabilize the finances of the country. And I inherited an economy then where the deficit was huge, I mean, bordering close to 10-11% of GDP, and we had to reduce it. And one of the greatest successes of my life as Minister of Finance is that I was able to bring that deficit down from 10 or 11% to about just about 4%,
All
which
right.
is what Shasta inherited and squandered. That was the reality of that situation.
Again, another. Yes.
But once we got the money from Taiwan, we got the support from Mexico. We moved in a more determined way towards the completion of the hospital. I mean, it's a good opportunity to clear up a lot of the myths and a lot of the foolishness that has been said. But it's painful what has happened.
Are you satisfied that with that support that you got and other factors, that during your last tenure as head of government, that administration 2011 to 2016, that the St. Jude Hospital reconstruction project really moved, to a certain stage that it picked up steam and it
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
20 million US is easily 54 million EC dollars.
Yes.
And plus, of course, the money from Mexico. Of course, the then planners, persons who were conceptualizing the hospital, and that is something else that we must talk about just a little bit. So I'm going to digress, Shelton, just a little bit.
I'll tell you what. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll go into that area of planning, because I am eager to talk about the planning and the design of the hospital.
And there are things I would want to clear up, including, of course, the whole issue of the architectural design.
All right, and the fact that even... All right, okay. You're listening to The Real Issues with me, Shelton Daniel, my guest, former Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony. We'll take a break, and we'll be back. You can't afford to go away.
Data for better decision making.
Where does good data come from? Does your business have a website, social media presence, or perhaps you accept electronic payments of any kind? If the answer is yes, your business is collecting data. There are many influences and factors to consider when making important business decisions. What is happening to our members and our country matters. Advances in data collection and analysis allow JANO to make competitive and targeted business decisions. Trend analysis informs our strategies to improve operational efficiencies and evaluate our proposed performance against our actuals. This is possible because we employ data capture in our decision-making processes.
ProTool. Measure the performance of your business with ProTool. Brought to you by the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council.
Blackout Production SLFA Football Tournament 2022 kicks off on September 24th. Look out for the playoffs at Mabuya Valley on September 24th and 25th. September 28th, the press launch takes place at the Crozile Human Resource Development Center, where the fixtures will be drawn. October 1st to 3rd, tournament first round kicks off at Mabuya Valley. October 5th and 8th, we head to the Sufre Mini Stadium with the continuation of round 1. October 9th, we kick off round 2 back at Mabuya Valley. And October 15th and 22nd, we head to the Darren Sami Stadium for the semi-finals and finals. Come support your favorite team at the Blackout Productions SLFA Football Tournament 2022.
Why so blue? Now's your chance to win super blah prizes. $20, kettles, press button phones, sneakers, and other super boring rewards.
Get more this summer with Digicel. Now's your time to win big, 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 and get more prizes and more value every day from the network that gives you more.
Digicel is doing what?
Yes, you heard correctly. Prepa Wepuge, cash, groceries, free gas, and more. Plus the grand prize of $20,000 this summer with Digicel.
Tell me how I could win.
Winning is easy. Activate any Prime bundles to Digicel. Sign up for Digicel Plus
Or pay your postpaid bill on time and in full.
It's time to get more this summer with Digicel.
Qualify to win now. Promotion ends August 20th, 2022. Digicel terms and conditions apply.
Digicel, better together this summer.
Have you heard of Well in the South?
Yes, Saltwell Supermarket.
Southwell Supermarket, located in Viewfort, is a jewel of convenience and affordability. Our well-stocked supermarket caters to all your grocery shopping needs. Not only does Southwell do retail, but we also have a wholesale department. Came here for the shopping? Experience the convenience of paying your utility bills at our SurePay outlet. Feeling lucky? Purchase your lottery tickets at Southwell, and your shopping experience is made unforgettable by our unsurpassed customer service. So many reasons why Southwell is the right choice. Our extended shopping hours are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. weekdays and Saturdays, and 8 a.m. 1:30 p.m. Sundays and holidays. Southwell Supermarket. Save more. Right price, right store, right choice.
Data helps you understand business performance.
Gathering and analyzing data is critical to improving your business. Tracking the performance of our team, our marketing efforts, as well as our product and the service offerings will let us know if our resources are being put to good use and are aligned to our expected return on our investment. Without data, how do you know who your customers are and what it is they think about your product and your service? Performance data is the key to understanding our customers and our market and provides the clarity needed for better results. So here at M Motors, data drives everything we do to ensure a premium, consistent service to you, our customer.
Pro Tool. Measure the performance of your business with Pro Tool. Brought to you by the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council.
Join the St. Lucia Labour Party for the annual Conference of Delegates on Sunday, October 9th from 3 p.m. at the Miku Secondary School under the theme Protecting Our Victory, Securing Our Future. Our special guest is Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister of Dominica, while Honorable Philip J. Pierre, political leader and Prime Minister of St. Lucia, brings a message of hope for securing our future. SLP soldiers and supporters, see you on Sunday, October 9th from 3 p.m. at the Miku Secondary School. There will be live entertainment. Be there.
The chatter has been quite a lot lately about the state of St. Jude Hospital. How far advanced was it when the St. Lucia Labour Party was voted out of office in early June 2016? Was it 70? Was it 80% complete? The man who was head of government at the time is giving us his recollections of the project, the funding that it received, and other matters pertinent to it which can help clear up a lot of the, I suspect, deliberate misinformation that is being peddled. My guest today on The Real Issues, Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, the MP for Vieux-Fort South and the former Prime Minister as well. We were talking about the financing and how far we'd gotten along with it, and also we'll get into some other things, but just wrap up here.
I had indicated to you earlier on that we had received this loan of $20 million US from the Taiwanese, which in effect turned out to be about 54. We had got support from Mexico. And then, of course, there were a lot of other donors, because even before we had got into office, some substantial sums were donated by organizations and by other governments following the fire to the former Stevenson King government. Now, there was no doubt in my mind that we had enough funds to move towards the completion of the hospital. In fact, when we lost the general election in 2016, the United Workers' Party did find a fairly healthy balance from the Taiwanese funds, and they admitted it was there and they used it for their own purposes along the way. That having been said, however, we had to contain the designers and the planners of the project. And there are a few things that I want to take the opportunity to clear once and for all, because I've cleared it before, but there's so much mischief, and there are things that people deliberately say just to muddy the waters so that the clear picture never, ever, ever emerges. The Stevenson King government had put in place a special team to look after the construction of the St. Jude Hospital after the fire. That team had a responsibility not just to design the reconstructed hospital, to determine how much of the hospital would have been rebuilt after the fire, but also to provide modern facilities, because in their own view, the intention was to make sure that St. Jude was a state-of-the-art hospital that could feed other medical facilities in the South, particularly medical facilities that was the result of investment by foreign medical schools. Of course, this is still an outstanding issue and an issue that we continue to work on. Now, I believe because of the urgency to replace the hospital, and these are things that you can look back at and perhaps say maybe it might have not been the wisest approach. But the Stephenson King government decided to produce, to work on the hospital step by step, meaning that they designed the hospital along the way because you already had a structure, an existing structure. The whole idea was to rebuild what was in existence by removing the materials, particularly the roofing, which was made of asbestos, and that presented its own problems because the asbestos had to be carefully removed to prevent contamination of the surrounding areas. Because the St. Jude that we know today is not the St. Jude that was there in the 1950s or 1960s. A lot of houses around it. So they employed a team to look after the hospital and to see to the design and the reconstruction of the hospital. When the St. Lucia Labour Party got into office in 2011, I elected, and I say I for a very deliberate reason, because I had to persuade other persons in the government at the time, to maintain the team that the former Prime Minister had in place, because I felt that if we had terminated the appointment of the team, that would have led to even more delays. We needed to get the hospital moving as quickly as possible. As things turned out, the contractor found himself into a lot of difficulty, a lot of problems with the workers. There were a lot of unexplained delays. So along the way, I had to take the decision to terminate the contract of the individual involved. And of course,
I was the one referred to as Concreto.
Yes. And then of course, bring in new contractors to continue the construction. Now, one big issue, and there's been a lot of talk about that, because you will notice even my tenure when the United Workers' Party was in power, I go to them about it and they couldn't give me answers. I constantly asked the former minister who was responsible for national development, Guy Joseph, to confirm that there had been approvals by the planning department for the hospital. And the retort was, you had no drawings, which was not true. In fact, the drawings were submitted to the planning department for final approval. The planning department did, I think, raise one or two little issues. But very interestingly, after approval was given to those drawings by the planning department, the former government, that is the Chasney-led government, maintained the lie that there was no planning approval. And I have it on sound authority that what in fact was done was that the planning department was told to hide the drawings, make the drawings disappear, so that you can then say to the public that they found no drawings. And I say this with absolute confidence because I have it on good authority. So much so that the current planning department was asked by the current government to locate those drawings so that they can continue with the rehabilitation of the structure still in existence. And they were able to find those drawings for the current government.
So I suppose the focus was on discrediting you and the government that you
That's the tragedy of our politics, because you see what has happened in St. Lucia is that politics has become so personal that they make they single out a parliamentary representative, they target him, but they don't appreciate that what they're doing is that they're inflicting pain and agony on the people whom the parliamentarian represents. And that is why the United Workers' Party will have huge problems in Vieux Fort, whether I'm around or whether I'm not around, because of the pain they have inflicted on the people of Vieux Fort. They have made the people of Vieux Fort suffer all because they feel that they want to punish me. And for years they have embarked on this journey to prove that I engage in corruption and one evil after the other. Of course, they've never been able to prove anything because there's nothing to prove.
Okay.
But quite apart, and it's a policy, of course, that was extended. You just see what happened with this horrendous building that they have now as the Wasco building in Soufrière, in Binfield, in an area that was earmarked for the administrative complex for Vieux Fort.
Okay.
Again, part of the punishment that was meted out to me to embarrass me by placing the building in that location. But what they are doing is causing injury to people.
Yes.
And it is time that we learn that we must separate the pain we want to inflict on individual parliamentarians as against the pain you inflict on an entire community. This can never be justified, and this can never
in addition to wasting money, which the UWP has shown itself quite adept at doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But about those drawings, who produced those plans and drawings that they tried to hide? Whose input was it? Was there a specific architect? Because I understand there was a lot of multiple inputs into the plans and designs for St. Jude's.
Yeah, there was an architect, and I'm just trying to remember the architects who were involved. I'm certain.
Were the Taiwanese asked, for example, to help with the design?
The Taiwanese were involved in some of the designs, yes, particularly the theaters, because I think they had funded in particular the theaters in the hospital. So there was some engagement, some involving, but the general infrastructure, the location of the buildings and the design of the buildings, they came from these architects. So it was a development that was being done in stages. Some of it was predictable and was fairly obvious. One of the big problems that they found at the hospital, of course, the hospital was so well built by the Americans. There was so much steel in that hospital that when they had to dismantle the internal walls to reconfigure the hospital, it took a hell of a long time because they had to bring in specialized equipment to try to strip the internal walls, etc., in the hospital, because the American army, they were formidable. And you see it up to today in Vieux Fort when you look at the concrete strip by Sandy Beach, because that was part of the airport, generally speaking. So they encountered a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges. But I did make the point that we had to try to contain the team because they were very anxious to put up additional facilities, because the objective was always to ensure that we had a hospital in the south that was comparable to the new OKEU hospital. And that the South must not have been shortchanged. But we paid a price for that because it meant that other buildings had to be designed and other buildings located. The UW made a big fuss about the fact that a little chapel was being built on the hospital grounds. But most modern hospitals do have chapels. It is true, of course, that the chapel would have serve several religious denominations, because at hospitals people always want a quiet place of reflection, quiet place for prayer, and they treated that as if it was utter wastage. I don't see that as wastage. In fact, I think it's a very good thing to have a place of prayer on a hospital site, because both patients and family, they do need moments of prayer, particularly when their loved ones face
terminal illness and so on, the possibility of death, the anguish that they deal with.
So that I also don't think that was waste at all. I think it was necessary and vital, and certainly helped the general ambience of the hospital.
Yeah, and that would not have been incompatible with the history and heritage of St. Jude's, which was always a religious associated one. A lot of nuns and priests and so on. You saw around St. Jude's and so on.
In fact, I can tell you, just for the record, that when the government was eventually handed the hospital to manage following the departure of the
Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother and the Sisters of Mercy and all that.
One of the issues what's the renaming of the hospital, that they felt that the hospital should be renamed because they were fearful that if the hospital got into the hands of the government, then other medical procedures which they had difficulty with might be performed at the hospital, and therefore would compromise the integrity of the hospital and the name of the hospital. And I had a hard job to persuade them that we should, in their honor, we should retain the name St. Jude Hospital, which is still what it is today,
So basically, there was a departure from the Stevenson King government approach of making it up as you go along, basically.
The intention was to get, complete plans, but enough money to make sure we arrived at a completion. And yes, I did intervene to prevent new facilities being provided because I made it absolutely clear that the priority had to be the completion of the hospital. That the people of the South had suffered enough, and it was not fair to them to be provided with substandard medical facilities. And then, of course, you know what happened. United Workers' Party got elected, and they went on their witch hunt. They had their report done. Suffice it to say that while the report was not very conclusive in suggesting that the former building ought to be abandoned, but in any event, the former government, the former Shasta government felt that the best thing to do was to abandon. And the question is, why did they take that position?
On what basis? Because even the report of the technical audit
not conclusive
done by Fontina didn't recommend that. It didn't.
But part of the issue, I think, is the vanity that accompanied that government. Vanity is a very cruel problem in politics, that you get so vain in office that you get preoccupied with legacy. And I believe part of the issue was that the former Prime Minister as well as the United Workers' Party felt that they needed their own legacy. So the best way to define that legacy is to build their own monuments. So they constructed what I describe as the box to replace what was the original hospital. And St. Lucia has paid a brutal price.
If you were to put that price in dollars, the price of demolishing those buildings and then building that box and so on, have you been able to put your hand on a figure that says
I am
knocking off those buildings and building that box?
I'm waiting for the current government to give us a clearer picture of the amounts that have been involved. First of all, we do know that in the case of the former hospital, when we lost the election, that already we had spent about 117 million. Although I think on the eve of the general election, about 93 or 94 odd million dollars had been spent, but with outstanding bills. And I must tell you, and this is a digression, when the United Workers' Party got into office and decided that they were going to adopt a different approach by constructing a box, do you know 5 years later there were contractors, including the main contractor, Obi Sadu, who was not paid for the work that he had done on the hospital. They punished him for 5 years. So Fresh Start was able to get millions of dollars on the new building, but Obi Sadu, who was the contractor that had replaced Concreto, they hadn't paid him, and I think up to now has not been paid. But I think the current government has given an undertaking that he will be paid.
Here's a question. Sorry, go ahead.
Now, but quite apart from that, now, when you look at the fact that as Prime Minister, and I'm quoting Prime Minister Pierre, who said that 118 million has already been spent on the box, and you are nowhere close to completion, because the so-called first floor that was supposed to have been built so that people could, patients could have occupied it, and then they would have worked on the other floors. Up to this day, we do not have what a complete costing would be like. So what is going to be crucial is to determine what is going to cost to really complete the box as it is. And I suspect that you are talking easily of another 150 million. I suspect. Because when you think of all the equipment that has to be imported, the existing first flooring, I think that the Prime Minister Pierre had suggested could be in his in the vicinity of another 60 million. That is the first flooring alone. So, and given what I know of hospitals, so you're looking for another tidy sum to complete the box. So the question would be, how much at the end of the day you will have to spend on that box? How much you're going to have to spend to bring the old structure back to life? But all that matters at the end of the day is that the people of the South must be given the hospital as quickly as possible.
All right.
And that I'm very deeply concerned about.
Had the St. Lucia Labour Party not lost the June 2016 elections,
we will have completed the hospital.
Yes, but when? By when? I'm saying how far beyond
I have been burned.
Would you have expected that?
I have been burned, and I hope all politicians.
2017, 2018?
Oh, I'm certain by 2018, but I have been burned, Sheldon, and I hope all politicians learn their lessons. Because sometimes we do give dates for public projects. And we are the ones who get the blame as politicians. And often people don't understand when we make these announcements that we get the advice from civil servants or those who are employed by government, and you just don't go divine a date, decide in your own mind that that's when it's going to take, that's when completion is going to be possible.
Right.
I can tell you what I did divine. Well, I repeatedly told Guy Joseph in Parliament during the sessions in Parliament that there's no way you could ever complete that hospital in time for the general election, which was then due in 2021. It was impossible, notwithstanding everything that they had said. And of course, to that, they never, ever replied. I mean, you remember his famous pronouncement at the public meeting that the hospital would have been ready and they would have to be tested on that. Now, we don't learn our lessons or learn the experience of other governments because that's, they are always, those experiences are always available to be consulted. What we do is that we continuously reinvent the wheel. And we have to learn to look at those experiences and extract the vital lessons from those experiences. I have been involved in a reconstruction or construction of 2 hospitals. First of all, there's the OKU hospital, which, of course, as you know, was a project conceptualized by the Labour Party. The funding was found by the Labour Party. It's a Labour Party project. And it fell to the Stephen Singing government after we lost the election to go ahead with the project because the contractor on that hospital was the European contractor, the same one who had been selected during our tenure. So it was just a project they had to continue. The only thing with that hospital was there was supposed to be 5 fingers to the hospital. And I think the Stephen Singing government got bad advice and they had amputated one of the fingers. So we have a hospital of 4 fingers. And that is why I think we have the crisis today with the amount of space at the hospital. And this is something we'll have to rectify in the future. So I was involved in that hospital. And then, of course, St. Jude. So I knew then that hospitals did take some time to construct, especially sophisticated hospitals. And where you've had a situation for example, that a donor is involved, as in the case of the European Union, then it becomes complex because you have to obey the procedures. You have to follow the procedures laid down by the donor, as happened in the case of the EU OKU hospital. So I knew that there was no way that they could have completed that box within the schedule that they were proposing. It really was an absurd proposition.
Am I right in discerning from what you have told me that this box effectively doubled the cost of the project? That just the box alone, demolishing the buildings and building the box?
I believe so.
I
mean, I am pretty certain that to complete that box is going to cost, if you look at the overall costing, easily over $200 million.
Oh my goodness!
That is a layman, and I don't have any estimates before me. But I am pretty certain, given if the expenditures we have had, if you have had an expenditure of 118 million, you don't have money to do the first floor, as the former government had proposed. Then you begin to add the second and other floors to that box. Then, I mean, clearly you're talking of easily over $200 million. Plus, of course, the equipment that would be
you'd have to put in it.
The question is, what do we do with the box in the future?
I have wanted to see if there is more to that box than we have been told, Because the United Workers' Party looks almost desperate now in trying to persuade the present government that it must continue with the box and so on, even when Prime Minister Peer has said we want to go back to the original design and so on. You, in passing, mentioned something about, plugging into the medical schools. I don't know if you meant rebuilding St. Jude's as a teaching hospital, as it is called sometimes. But what is the plan, do you think? Does it bear any relation to plans for medical school or association with medical schools behind that box?
It's my understanding that there will be a full-fledged debate in Parliament on St. Jude Hospital. I think that's necessary because the public need to know chapter and verse about St. Jude Hospital. And we have a responsibility to the medical community. They need to know exactly what is happening. But in one of the budget debates, I made it very clear that Beaufort cannot be the constituency for the location of unsightly projects. So to allow the box to continue as is and deteriorate over time would be an injustice to the people of Beaufort and to my constituency. We already have a badly designed Wasco building, in a prime site. And then, of course, there have been other buildings in Beaufort constructed by the former government, for example, the facility that looks after private jets at the airport. I don't know, but I get the impression that when it comes to my constituency and the designing of buildings, those who make the decisions do not seem to understand that the community of Beaufort, there's a soul and there's a spirit, and that architecturally we need to to design appealing buildings that can lift not just the constituency but also the people of St. Lucia. So they have a habit of constructing very
buildings that are incompatible with the landscape.
With the landscape and the country as a whole. So it's a real problem. Anyway, put that on the side. What I did say where this building is concerned, that in light of the fact that the government may not have resources to do both things, that is to complete the box as well as rehabilitate the former hospital, or in fact to find all the resources necessary to complete the box on its own, that maybe what we need to do is to put out the box to tender to private developers to develop a specialized medical facility in St. Lucia utilizing the box, that we can then sell medical services to the region and indeed to the world.
Okay.
But what you do is that the capital cost involved in completing the box and of course purchasing the equipment, you work that capital cost back into lease payments for the hospital for a duration of time, and you then exonerate the developer from the payment of the lease payments, but the lease payments go to the capital cost of completing the construction of the hospital. And then you integrate both facilities with the medical schools in Beaufort. It is vital that we have to strike out in a new direction and integrate to both facilities as part of the overall provision of medical services in the South as a whole.
Okay.
I think that really that is the only route at this time, but I certainly do not support leaving the box to deteriorate, but I accept that the government will have financial challenges and will have financial issues. What I do think is that we have to be very bold and put out the box to tender and invite private developers to bid for it, but as I said, allow the lease payments to go towards
the capital cost. All right, you're listening to The Real Issues with me, Shelton Daniel, your host and producer, my very special guest today, and for the first time on this program, former Prime Minister Dr. Kenny D'Anthony, and we'll take a break. We're overdue for that. When we come back, we'll be opening the telephone lines to take your calls as well as reading some of your messages, and maybe one more question that I want to ask Dr. Anthony about the dimensions of the hospital in terms of entering doorways and so on, that we heard something said about it. What was his experience with it? I'm sure you're already giggling at that. Back in a moment.
Production SLFA Football Tournament 2022 kicks off on September 24. Look out for the playoffs at Mabuya Valley on September 24th and 25th. September 28th, the press launch takes place at the Crozile Human Resource Development Center, where the fixtures will be drawn. October 1st to 3rd, tournament first round kicks off at Mabuya Valley. October 5th and 8th, we head to the Sufre Mini Stadium with the continuation of round 1. October 9th, we kick off round 2 back at Mabuya Valley. And October 15th and 22nd, we head to the Darren Sami Stadium for the semi-finals and finals. Come support your favorite team at the Blackout Productions SLFA Football Tournament 2022.
Why so blue? Now's your chance to win super blah prizes. $20 kettles, press button phones, sneakers, and other super boring rewards.
Get more this summer with Digicel. Now's your time to win big, 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 and get more prizes and more value every day from the network that gives you more.
Digicel is doing what?
Yes, you heard correctly. Pepper Wepuge, cash, groceries, free gas, and more. Plus the grand prize of $20,000 this summer with Digicel.
Tell me how I could win.
Winning is easy. Activate any Prime bundle,
Switch to Digicel.
sign up for Digicel Plus,
Or pay your postpaid bill on time and in full.
it's time to get more this summer with Digicel.
Qualify to win now. Promotion ends August 20th, 2022. Digicel terms and conditions apply.
Digicel, better together this summer.
Data helps you improve processes.
Data helps you to understand your business processes and to reduce wasted money and time.
Every company feels the effects of waste. It depletes your resources, squanders time, and ultimately impacts your business bottom line.
Plan to save money and time. Maximize your business full potential with data.
At St. Lucia Linen, data has enabled us to plan for the future and to increase our efficiency.
Pro Tool. Measure the performance of your business with Pro Tool. Brought to you by the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council.
Blackout Production SLFA Football Tournament 2022 kicks off on September 24. Look out for the playoffs at Mabuya Valley on September 24th and 25th. September 28th, the press launch takes place at the Crozile Human Resource Development Center, where the fixtures will be drawn. October 1st to 3rd, tournament first round kicks off at Mabuya Valley. October 5th and 8th, we head to the Sufre Mini Stadium with the continuation of round 1. October 9th, we kick off round 2 back at Mabuya Valley. And October 15th and 22nd, we head to the Darren Sami Stadium for the semi-finals and finals. Come support your favorite team at the Blackout Productions SLFA Football Tournament 2022.
Bob and Dave were very proud to buy their mom a new energy-saving fridge with lots of smart settings. They remember the old ways of energy saving. Mom always said, close the fridge, you're wasting current. Smart advice then, smart advice now. Close the fridge, you're wasting current. Saving energy is what's smart.
Have you heard of a well in the South?
Yes, Southwell Supermarket.
Southwell Supermarket, located in Viewfort, is a jewel of convenience and affordability. Our well-stocked supermarket caters to all your grocery shopping needs. Not only does Southwell do retail, but we also have a wholesale department. Came here for the shopping? Experience the convenience of paying your utility bills at our SurePay outlet. Feeling lucky? Purchase your lottery tickets at Southwell, and your shopping experience is made unforgettable by our unsurpassed customer service. So many reasons why Southwell is the right choice. Our extended shopping hours are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. weekdays and Saturdays, and 8 a.m. 1:30 p.m. Sundays and holidays. Southwell Supermarket. Save more. Right price, right store, right choice.
Join the St. Lucia Labour Party for the annual Conference of Delegates on Sunday, October 9th from 3 p.m. at the Miku Secondary School under the theme Protecting Our Victory, Securing Our Future. Our special guest is Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister of Dominica, while Honorable Philip J. Pierre, political leader and Prime Minister of St. Lucia, brings a message of hope for securing our future. SLP soldiers and supporters, see you on Sunday, October 9th from 3 p.m. at the Miku Secondary School. There will be live entertainment. Be there.
One for staying with the real issues. Our program is weekdays from 12:30 until 2 p.m. here on Real FM 91.3 North, 91.5 South, and we're also simulcasting on NBC Television Channel 120 on the Flow Cable Vision service. We are on the Facebook Live, and our programs are uploaded to YouTube. Our special guest today for the first time on this program, former Prime Minister and the MP for Vieux South, Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony. And before I open the phone lines, I want to ask Dr. Anthony whether he ever had any share or part in the very subjective experiences that so many people were reporting about the reconstructed St. Jude's Hospital, or the project for reconstruction, because we heard all kinds of things about people, you know, raising their hands so and saying it wasn't tall enough or it wasn't wide enough, people claiming that they had to squeeze through, the ceilings were very low and the alleyways were very narrow. Mary Isaac, the former Minister of Health, gave her experience of going up a flight of steps and having to crouch and stoop and that sort of thing. She's been torn apart by former Health Minister Alvina Reynolds. But did you ever have any of those subjective experiences?
I mean, I'm 6 feet 3 inches. I mean, I'm a very tall man, as you know. I mean, I can't recall having monumental problems or problems at all. Certainly, in comparison, Mary Isaac is a midget next to me. So, I mean, that's really engaging in absurdity. But my point, in any event, Shelton, is this: if you felt that there were architectural issues or design issues with the building you had inherited, and the issues were not overwhelming, or the issues were not very significant, or the issues were not structural, then do whatever remedial works you think that is necessary to have those things done. Because don't forget that the team of people who were assigned to look after the reconstruction of the old St. Jude Hospital were also working closely with the Accreditation Authority in Canada regarding the hospital and the layout of the hospital and also the facilities of the hospital. So that even if you inherited issues you thought were design issues, then for goodness sake, just correct them. That doesn't justify that you put this country in the debt or put this country in the situation that it currently finds itself, because the price of the St. Jude issue is really enormous, you know. It's not just the denial of health care to the people in the South. It's not the fact that we're compromising the integrity of the medical personnel in the South by giving them substandard conditions in which to work. it's a number of other things. One, the cumulative decline of the infrastructure of the stadium.
I'm glad you went
which
there.
is something that we now have to consider.
Yes.
The second thing is this. The people of St. Lucia will eventually have to pay for two separate projects. The money that was spent on that box so far, the 118 million,
a lot of money.
and the money to be spent in the future for that box, it means that other more deserving projects in the country cannot be financed because you will be preoccupied with that. That is why I think the government has to search for a different approach so as not to burden the taxpayers of the country while ensuring that a modicum of medical services are provided to the people in the South. And not, of course, I'm not talking about substandard services, because as I've always maintained, the people in the South deserve quality services as good as the services
In the
provided
North,
through the OKEU hospital. But if you turn now to the stadium,
yes, opportunity cost and
the
opportunity
opportunity
lost.
cost, we now have a monumental problem on our hands, because there's no question that the day St. Jude leaves the stadium, that stadium will have to be stripped because, as you know, it has deteriorated so significantly.
That's right.
The stadium is close to the sea in Vieux-Fort. A lot of the steel structures have been affected by the salinity.
Visibly.
Close by. And as you know, unless we do some very quick work there to do some repairs, we are putting people's lives in danger because a lot of the structures, basic structures, have been affected by the weather, and they are in very poor condition. So we have to ensure that this thing is rectified. So the cost, in other words, to the people of St. Lucia is going to be monumental. So when you include completing the old hospital, and don't forget, and you use a term that I liked very much, opportunity cost. Had we done that in 2016, we would have been spared the monumental increase in the cost of materials and labor that exists today.
That's right.
A sheet of plywood at once used to cost $70, $80, is now nearly $200 or more.
Yes.
So, you know, the stupidity of the decision to punish a former government and to punish the parliamentary rep has now landed St. Lucians in a very difficult situation, has endangered the financial future of this country, and has denied the people of St. Lucia opportunities for investment that would have impacted on their lives. That's the reality of the situation.
And a lot of things that were procured and that were donated, deteriorated.
That is another story, because we don't even have an update on the status of the equipment that was already ordered for the hospital. But that is why I'm hoping that we do have this debate, this resolution in Parliament to look at the issues of St. Jude and to give the people of St. Lucia the details that they deserve, and perhaps the rationale as well for the decisions that have been made regarding St. Jude.
All right.
The people of the South in particular deserve it.
I said that I was chomping at the bit to get going with this interview, being the first time we'll be having Dr. Anthony. I know you are also chomping at the bit even more, to interact with him. We won't have time to take too many calls. We have to wrap it up at about 2 o'clock or a little before that. But the telephone lines are open to take your calls, 4533-911 and 724-7325. The mobile number, you can call direct or you can WhatsApp call it, especially useful for those of you who are trying to reach us from overseas. So if you want to get in a few calls, now is the time to do so. Try not to stay too long, make it short and sweet and give another person a chance. So 4533-911, the number to dial, where you can speak with Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, former political leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, and of course he is the 25 years continuous and still serving MP for the constituency of Vieux-Fort South. As we await our first call, Dr. Anthony, 25 years. I mean, you've been in the parliament unbroken. You have other kudos and credits to your name, former educator and so on. forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I don't hear anything named after you. I don't hear any Kenny Anthony Road, Kenny Anthony Drive.
Shelton,
Bridge.
I love my constituents, Jerry, and I'm so grateful to the people of Beaufort South. But I have repeatedly said I don't want anything named after me.
All right, but I see somebody who came and inside 1 year in his first term as parliamentary, he had Great Wall of...
Well, I spoke earlier on of the politics of vanity, and that explains it all. It's sheer vanity. And sometimes it's not politicians who deserve the credit at all. I think there are hundreds of other solutions that we need to honor. But I've always said that I don't want anything named after me, any roads, nothing, no buildings. For me, my legacy lies in the hearts of my constituents in particular who have been faithful to me. The loyalty and their love, their kindness and their care. And when I'm departed, if they can say quietly that he was a good man, I'm happy. My family would be happy.
Nigel Nicholas, I know you're taking note of that, and that will be a quote that we will be replaying. That his recognition lies in the hearts of of his people. We have our first caller. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to The Real Issues.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Daniel.
Good afternoon to you.
And good afternoon, Dr. Anthony.
Good afternoon to you, ma'am.
Yes, I tend to agree with you, Dr. Anthony, with most of the things that you have mentioned, with the cost of St. Jude and all of that.
Yes.
I don't know, but my advice to the government would be, you see where St. Jude is located, the actual hospital, that's the old hospital. I'm looking at the location of the stadium there. It really looks appropriate for the building of a new hospital. I wouldn't touch St. Jude on the other side at all. I would try to look for somewhere that I could put patients and the nurses for now. Now, I could have mentioned the places I have in mind, but maybe when I see you personally, I'll tell you where.
Sure.
And I would break down the stadium and build a new hospital. It might be more costly, but when you're looking at repairs, it is also costly. But I'm looking at the location of the stadium. It's very convenient for a hospital. I would forget about the old St. Jude, break down the stadium, build a new hospital. In the meantime, get a place to put patients and nurses for now. But
what would you do with the stadium, though, since you're going to break it down? Are you going to say that, look, St. Lucia still needs a stadium, but no longer in Beaufort? Where in Beaufort would you put it?
St. Lucia still needs a stadium.
So what would you do with it?
Else. Because as you said, if you look at the condition of the building, is deteriorating.
Yes, it is, rapidly.
Right. So I would break down that building completely, right, and build a new hospital, and in the meantime, look for somewhere. Because to go back to St. Jude, the St. Lucians cannot understand, but it's very costly. Very, very costly.
Yes. No, we agree that it is going to be a costly undertaking either way. And certainly I'm hoping that debate in Parliament will give us a window and a clearer sense of the options and why particular options had to be taken. I think that's going to be important that is explained.
I quite agree with you, but to go back to St. Jude's, I know it is very costly, and you would just have to put a few million just to build a complete new hospital and modernized hospital.
You will have to, I'm afraid. I mean, you have to look at the OKEU, for example, and the monumental cost involved in constructing the OKEU. No hospital will come cheaply. And the fact of the matter is that any hospital, you will have to ensure that there are enough rooms at the hospital to accommodate our increasing population. Although the birth rate has declined somewhat over the last couple of years, but nevertheless, there's still a lot of people to look after. And I'm getting a sense that we also have a shortage of beds. So I'm just saying to you that in your configuration, don't ignore the monumental cost involved.
All right.
I understand.
Yeah. Thank you very much, caller. You're very interesting, but let's try to see if we can squeeze in a couple more people. Really appreciate your starting offer. We have someone else on the line. Hi, good afternoon. This is The Real Issues. Hello.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, good afternoon to you.
And good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, my contribution is, Doc, if the SLP government does not take Alan and his goons to task for spending our money where we have no clue where it went to, nobody will never wear a red shirt for the rest of their lives in St. Lucia.
Yes.
And I rest my case.
Okay, ma'am. I see that the government has enacted legislation hopefully to appoint a special prosecutor to look at some of the issues. And we have to hope that that is done. The time, of course, is slipping. We already have 16 months into the government's tenure. So I understand how you feel about those issues because we have spoken about those issues so much. And then there are some big issues that we're not hearing too much about today. The issue, for example, of the purchase of the vaccines and the balance of the money that is owed to the government and people of St. Lucia. There is so much I can tell you, especially when I begin to compare some of those things to issues that I was taken to task on when I was Prime Minister. But we leave it there for the time being, for another day, another time.
Yes, because we have another call on the line.
Sure.
Thank you very much, caller. Hi, good afternoon. This is The Real Issues.
Hi, good afternoon, Shelton.
Yeah, hi,
And
good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Anthony.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Anthony.
Hi.
I just need to ask you a question. You're saying that when you left office in 2016, you had left enough money for the old St. Jude's Hospital to be completed? That's what you said?
Okay. I'm saying that yes, because at the time, the designers and planners, they were bent on, well, not bent, they had requested additional buildings, etc., to be constructed on the site, which would have required additional financing. And I made it clear to them that that would not happen, that we have to go with the existing facilities and complete the existing facilities. You would have heard Guy Joseph in Parliament suggesting that the completion of the hospital would have taken another 80, I can't remember the figure he quoted, 80 or 90 million, and they had asked for that. And you notice that I never really took him on for that. I just let him say what he was saying. But the fact of the matter was that that amount that you're talking about was essentially for the construction of additional facilities, which the then government had put a stop to and had said, listen, we want no more facilities. What the people need to do, what we need to do is to complete the existing building and the existing facilities. Any other facilities will have come into the future. So there was a significant balance left on the Taiwanese loan that I had indicated. Some was spent, some was already spent. And of course, we had got a support from the government of Mexico. A lot of equipment, etc., had been purchased. And while, of course, I wouldn't say categorically that you may not have needed a couple more millions, but certainly it would never have been significant.
Significant like this.
Yeah.
Now, just one more question I need to ask you, Doc. One more question I need to ask you.
You're welcome.
So, that new building, well, the box which Guy Joseph and Alan Chasney built, I understood, through my research and everything, that hospital basically did not have the necessary, how will I say it, like the light, the water, but they were saying that they needed $70 million to complete the bottom. Well, the first floor.
Well, yes, I'm hearing figures 70, I'm hearing 80, I'm even hearing 68. But the argument is that to complete that bottom floor alone would have required that amount of money.
Which is crazy, because what I don't understand there, because through my research, with you, I don't know if you pick up my voice, but you know me very well. Through my research and everything, what I realized is that everybody had a different story. And based on what you're saying, there were plans for St. Jude's Hospital, but then UWP came to say there were no plans by you.
No, there were plans. I mean, I can state categorically that there were plans.
Caller, can you listen off a while, Dr. Anthony, because we might get cut off.
But there were plans, I assure you, and I say so categorically. Yes.
Dr. Anthony, we might be due to be suddenly cut off because of a pre-arranged with the lotto. So if that doesn't come, parting words from you.
Thank you.
The winning numbers for the midday draw of Thursday, 6th October 2022 were Double Dilly Grand 3, 5, 15, 17, Big 4, 5, 9, 7, 0. The Big 4 multi-X ball drawn is 2X. Big 2, 8, 1. The Big 2 multi-X ball drawn is 2X. One off, 5, 5, 4. Lucky 3, 6, 8, 1. The Lucky Free Multi-X ball drawn is 2x.
Okay, so folks, this is where we wrap up the real issues for today. We're sorry about the abrupt interruption, but we have this arrangement with the lotto that when it comes on at 2, just like our time check, we just have to take it. But I want to say a proper, thank you and, goodbye to Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony for being on the program today and for responding at relatively short notice, to agree to be here. And what a tremendous input that it has made. I'm sure I see your comments and so on, and I know your calls would keep on rolling, but he has to go and we have to go as well. Dr. Kenny Anthony, like I said at the start, always a pleasure and an honor talking to you.
Well, thank you, Shelton, and thank you for the opportunity to share my views and to share perspectives, as well, of course, as to revisit the construction of the St. Jude Hospital. I must tell you that I'm looking forward to the debate in Parliament, and I believe all the questions need to be answered in that debate. There is perhaps no issue where the government needs to bring the people of St. Lucia in its total and complete confidence as the St. Jude Hospital, because it is an issue that looms very large in the south, and I'm hoping that we will go some way to do all of that and to calm and reassure the people of the south and of course the people of St. Lucia who have had to bear the burden of the misadventures of that hospital over the years.
All right, and so people, thanks so very much. I see your comments in the Facebook Live interaction. Really appreciate your being here. And just a reminder that tonight at 8:30 I'll be on Can I Help You with Richard Frederick, and he has assured me that tonight he is going to be there. So 8:30 tonight, Can I Help You on NBC Television. Really appreciate your company. You're the reason we do that. Do enjoy the rest of your Thursday safely. Shelton Daniel on behalf of Nigel Nicholas signing out.
Right.
Why so blue? Now's your chance to win super blah prizes. $20, kettles, press button phones, Snickers and other super boring rewards.
Get more this summer with Digicel. Now's your time to win big, big, big! And get more prizes and more value every day from the network that gives you more!
Digicel is doing what?
Yes, you heard correctly. Pepper Wepuge, cash, groceries, free gas, and more. Plus, the grand prize of $20,000.